Well, we're going to become increasingly non-biological to the point where the non-biological part predominates and the biological part is not that important anymore.
When it starts to collapse, it's going to happen very fast.
Defeat the globalists who want to shatter your mind!
In the future, the internet will be in your contact lens. You will blink and you will go online.
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific caste system.
There's going to be a revolution. It's totally going to happen.
A new world order.
History is leading toward the transformation of this planet in our lifetime.
You're listening to Themes and Memes, a different kind of movie review podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Franz. I'm here with my co-host, Adam of CerebralRevolt.com. How are you doing today, Adam?
Not bad, Aaron, not bad. Obviously, I'm always excited to talk to you and, do our next installment of Themes and Memes, of course. This month we'll be covering the film Now You See Me, which is basically, how do you sum up a film like that? It's obviously it's a little reference to the whole, magician's concept of now you see me, now you don't, and, that whole thing, but it's quite a difficult film to sum up, isn't it? There's definitely very prevalent themes, but how would you describe this film?
Yeah, well, it's about magic, I guess. If we want to simplify it, that'd be the way to do it. It's a film about magic, about magicians, stage magicians, and it's a group of 4 magicians who come from humble beginnings. So there's street magicians. One guy is Woody Harrelson, is a street hypnotist / mentalist. That's a pretty interesting thing right there. The other ones are doing stage magician. They're stage magicians already, but they're, at a low level. And throughout the movie, or kind of, there's this instance where they're all brought together. They're all given a tarot card and brought to this one place to be introduced to something. We don't learn exactly what that is. It kind of cuts from them being in this smoky room to what is it, a year later, and they're on the stage in Las Vegas, right?
Yeah, well, so as you say, you've got these 4 magicians, all sort of different specialities and different sort of themes that they play on, but they're all given sort of mysteriously given this tarot card. And they all end up meeting in the same place. And as you say, it's unclear what happens, but they're sort of at that point when they all meet together, they're given something. They're given some access to something. Information, I think is what they're given access to there, because this big holographic projection comes up and it's got all these blueprints for buildings and data that would be very useful for playing sleight of hand, on people, the underground passages and the lift elevator shafts and all different things that a big magician could use to pull off something big, So they're given something and some kind of information. It's unclear again, but then it jumps, as you say, forward to a year later, and they're all performing some amazing magic trick in Las Vegas to a huge audience.
Yeah, the fact that it is in Las Vegas, I think, is significant. I guess real quick, Vegas is the epitome of material excess and sin city as it is. So I think the fact that they're performing to an audience in that place is significant, and we'll get into more why later. But the name that they use on stage is the 4 Horsemen. So they're the 4 Horsemen. And this name also, of course, references the apocalypse. So the 4 Horsemen of the apocalypse. So we have an apocalyptic theme going on with apocalypse. There's lots of meanings of apocalypse, but they're definitely playing to that here.
Yeah, definitely playing to that. There's a whole bunch of ideas that they play on through the film, and that's why it's such a hard film to talk about and describe, because it's almost as if the whole film is one big sleight of hand, and these recurring themes that keep on coming up, they keep on saying things like, look closer, analyze more,
they say, what is it? The more you know, the less you'll understand, or something. Exactly, or the more you think you know, the more you think you know.
It's basically sort of goading you to try and analyze things and look for the sleight of hand. Where is it? And analyze what's going on. And it's like the harder you look, as you say, the less you'll see. So there's that whole thing going on throughout the whole film. But so I mean, these magicians, the first big trick in Sin City in Las Vegas is to basically rob a bank in front of a huge audience, it's explained later on in the film how this is done, and for anybody in the film, for anybody who hasn't seen the film, we'll warn them now. There's going to be a big spoiler, so
as always, as we do here.
On Teams of Teams, the spoiler comes fairly near the first 10 minutes of the interview. So, so they did this big. Supposedly rob a bank, and it's all very convincing, and the audience is convinced by it, and they become overnight superstars. They're all over the internet, all over the news, and this is presumably because they've been given, some kind of access to information or technology or both that allows them to do things that, so convincing.
Yeah.
One of the big themes, of course, that keeps coming up again and again in the film is a lot of the things they do involve money. A lot of the tricks they do involve money and involve, in one of them they rob a bank, and then they rob somebody else's account, and it's all about sort of like there's this whole theme that keeps coming up again, is sort of tipping the scales. It's all about taking money from the rich and giving it to the poor, almost like a Robin Hood type thing. Most of the tricks revolve around that, and so I found it very interesting that that was the kind of the main theme of pretty much all the different tricks that they did throughout the whole film. Was about trying to bring about more equality by basically stealing from the rich and giving it to the the average person, the audience.
It's trying to free the slaves, and again, if we're talking about the slaves would be the people in the audience. If you're talking in a symbolic sense, they're slaves to their material desires and their lusts and things like this, and they've gone to Las Vegas to actually pursue those material desires to the nth degree. So they are in shackles, they are in chains, and this is a occult concept here, and certainly there's occult ideas going on with the stage magicians and with what they're doing. I mean, this is a highly Masonic story here. The whole time, I guess this deserves to be mentioned right here since we're on the topic. The Four Horsemen are what they're doing through these big tricks, with the bank robbing tricks and the huge stage acts that everybody's watching. It's part of an initiation process for them into this secret society that's called the Eye, and it goes back to Egypt, and Morgan Freeman gives you a little explanation of it in the movie. But they're trying to join this secret society called the Eye. Yeah, that's right.
That's the symbol of the one, the one eye, whether you want to call it the Eye of Horus or the Eye of Lucifer or of Aton or whoever. There's a million different names for it, of course, but everybody knows what the eye is. And the symbol of the eye and what that represents, and that's brought out again and again in the film. That image, and of course, as you say, this is it's very much like a sort of secret society, Masonic, whatever you want to call it, Illuminati, an initiation ritual where the adepts are, taken through, a sort of a I don't know, an initiation.
Well, they have to prove themselves worthy, and there's many trials and tests.
Trials, that's right. It's basically all of these the stage tricks that they do sort of become more and more extreme and sort of more and more impressive and deceptive, and so they're being given. So they're sort of being guided through, as you say, a series of tests and trials to give them the opportunity to prove that they're worthy, of becoming enlightened, or being reborn again, and whatever you want to call that, in terms of like the Masonic initiation.
Yeah.
It
was a trick designed long ago on a global scale. I think that's I think that's one of the lines that Morgan Freeman say there.
That's right.
And his character is important to mention too here, because he is a magician as well. He's not part of the Four Horsemen. What his deal is that he's a guy who exposes magic tricks, and he goes on TV and tells people like, well, here's how a magician does a certain trick. So he's a spoiler. So he says, okay.
Like a debunker, yeah.
Yeah, he's a debunker, sort of, yeah.
Former magician turned debunker, yeah, basically. And
so his stake in the game is to be making his next special. It's going to be on TV, and they're always referencing like, "Oh, you made $2 million on your last TV special. Are you going to make? How much more are you going to make?" And so, a lot of talk about the money that is involved with him, and so obviously we're given the fact that he's in it for the money, which again is not a pure motive, is it? But we're suspicious of him, but it's also hinted at that he is somehow part of the Four Horsemen, and behind the scenes, he's working to help them, and that's kind of like they play on that the whole movie through.
That's right. Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that sort of comes up, again and again, especially with this. Basically, there's like I think a detective, an FBI detective or something, who's trying to sort of he's basically in pursuit with the Four Horsemen, trying to figure out how they robbed this bank and how they robbed this account, and he's very skeptical about the whole concept of magic, and he's sort of this kind of stressed out cop just constantly chasing them and constantly being led around in circles and made a fool of and all this kind of stuff, and he ends up working with a French Interpol agent, who was assigned to join him on the case, and because the first bank they robbed was a bank in France, and she's very sort of interested in all the occult esoteric meanings behind what they're doing, and she sort of keeps on. I think she sort of basically gets him to sort of accept the fact that there may be a fifth horseman. Basically someone behind the scenes, someone like, as you say, someone who's guiding them through this ritual and is providing them with the information they need and the technology and the resources to do what they're doing. And of course, as you say, it's sort of hinted at or maybe suggested at one point that perhaps Morgan Freeman might be the fifth horseman, because up until a certain point he seems to have a fairly good understanding of what's going on. At least that's the way they portray it in the film. They sort of make Morgan Freeman out to really look like he's a sort of he's not really involved in this whole thing, but he's someone who seems to understand what the next move is going to be and how they're manipulating and how they're deceiving and how the whole how all this sleight of hand is being perpetrated, and so that keeps coming up again and again. And it gets sort of more and more prominent towards the end of the film. That the whole concept of there's obviously like one person behind this. There's a fifth horseman. There's someone who's set this whole thing up.
Yeah, he's a guy who's in control, and it's just the whole time it's a matter to what extent. And they're playing on the mystery there, and this is the sort of movie that it's designed to keep you guessing until the end, and they have the big surprise ending in the end, and that's really, that's the way it was crafted, to try to mislead you, so that you're always looking for the answer, but you never quite have it. And they make mention of this in that the more you think you understand, the less you actually know. And they're speaking to the process of stage magic, and stage magic is deception, and it's sleight of hand. You're looking one way, but it's actually happening over here. So there's a lot going on with. This subject to me is fascinating. Stage magic, and magic in a greater sense too. But I think that magic in the greater sense is sort of presented here as stage magic because that's the way that a movie-going audience can most easily understand the concept, because that's kind of like the overt version of what magic is.
Yeah, it's kind of like a I guess you could say it's more like they chose the concept of stage magic as an allegory for the profane, so that certain concepts could be presented to a larger audience in a way that they would understand it. Just the whole concept of a stage magician being something that people could relate to, when what they're really getting at is something more profound. What they're really getting at is something, much more arcane and much more deceptive and much more sort of nuanced than purely a stage magic show. But of course that's the sort of vessel through which these ideas, or the premise rather, through which these ideas are sort of given to the public and or the audience at least. And as you say, yes, it's quite complex, and I think it's almost it's like a magic show within a magic show within a magic show. I mean, there's so many layers going on, and it's like it's a hard thing to sort of nail down. And I've seen the film twice now, and I'm still sort of I think I've been sort of hooked into the whole trying to analyze it and trying to figure it out. And they keep saying, that the harder you look and the closer you look, the less you'll see. But it's hard not to do that with a film like this, because there's so much going on and there's so much that's unexplained, Mm-hmm. I think that's the allegory of the stage magician is really the ideal way that these ideas could be presented to a large audience. I don't think people would have really gotten a lot of the messages that were intended to be promoted in this film, had it not been able to do it through that sort of through that premise, I guess.
Yeah. And any given stage, any given performance is actually seen as a ritual, and the stage is a altar to Dionysus, actually. So Dionysus ties into all theater, all dramatic performance, of which stage magic actually is very much about the dramatic performance. That's all of it, really. It's the trick is just a drama being played out on the stage. So drama ties into initiation rituals of secret societies too. And I've actually read some pieces where some people say that drama kind of originally comes out of occult initiation. That's where it first sort of began back long ago, before people would be even familiar with the concept of drama, you know what I mean? So, but still there were secret societies. So somebody would go and be initiated, and through the process, different other people who are already adepts in the society will like put on costumes and scare them and put on a drama and put on a play as part of the initiation.
Yeah, it reminds me of the film Eyes Wide Shut, where it's not so much that the protagonist is being led through an initiation ritual, but I think he's more being toyed with. It's kind of a ritual for the people who are doing all the controlling and putting on all the drama, but it's a similar kind of thing. It's it's all theater. Everything that happens in that film was theater from start to finish. It's and I don't think many people picked up on that. They don't see that all the little clues that this character was being led and guided and directed through this entire experience from the very start of the film, and so it reminds me very much of Eyes Wide Shut. The same kind of thing, it's the whole concept of using drama to entice an audience in, and also in some ways to entice the initiates in as well. But of course they've got to prove that they're able to see past the drama, and not get hooked in to trying to overanalyze things and trying to figure things out logically. This is something that's referenced by the female detective who's in pursuit of these four horsemen, assisting the FBI guy. And she keeps on saying, sometimes you need to take a leap of faith. And that came up again and again. I think more towards the end of the film, the whole concept of not having all the answers, and obviously not being able to see how the magic is being done, but having some kind of faith that there is something more mysterious and more intangible and more esoteric than you have the capacity to understand at that point in time.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the genre of the film and all the stuff going on in the film, because the genre would be action, so it's kind of an action film. Mm-hmm. I think that's designed to be part of the whole sleight of hand trick too, and that this will happen in any given action movie, is that a lot of people will want to just focus on the action sequences and like get carried away and like, oh boy, here's the car chase. This is exciting. And, you get all excited and you get carried away in the moment of the action. And you're not thinking about, what's this action sequence mean? What's this fight sequence mean? Like a lot of times it doesn't even mean anything. If the movie's being done really well, it actually has an intense meaning. I'll just reference another movie real quick. They Live, the fight scene is like incredibly symbolic, and I love that. That's good. But here, there's a lot of action that, if it's being symbolic, I kind of missed it even. It seems to be a lot of vacuous, just running around, running through bars. You're chasing me, like here goes this and that. But the whole point is beyond that. So it's kind of odd in that sense.
Yeah, it is. I think again, it's just put in there to appeal to a wider audience and to, of course, as you said, get people excited and emotive about what's going on, so their emotions are sort of in control rather than perhaps the more critical faculties of the mind. So you could make the point that a lot of the action sequences in the film were put in there merely mainly as a distraction, and we definitely find out that towards the end of the film, one of the biggest action sequences, this car chase you were referencing, is actually part of the magic show. That is something that was just all put on. It was even you have this big car crash and the car explodes and someone apparently dies, but even that that was all part of the show as well.
Mm-hmm. So the implication is you're always watching the magic trick. It's never over. Even when you trying to escape, you can't do it.
Exactly. Yeah. Even it's like there's no clear boundary between the stage and the real world. The magic carries over into the real world, into the actual plot of the entire film. And so again, it's like these multiple layers of there's sort of multiple storylines going on here. It's a magic show within a magic show within a magic show. And the whole film is basically just one big sleight of hand in a way as well. And for that reason,
the real tangible world is always the subject of change for the magician too. You're trying to get actual change to happen. You're putting on. You're seemingly having all these flashy effects that people are looking at, like, oh, he has occult powers, and you look at what he does. He's throwing lightning bolts, or But the whole time, that's just a show. That's just like there's a trick to that. The real trick, the real action is in, well, how do you change the world? You know what I mean? That's the whole point of magic.
That is what alchemy is. It's bringing ideas from the mind into the real world. Obviously, most people tend to think of it as having something to do with like actual physical, scientific processes of breaking down metals and turning lead into gold or whatever. But that's really just an allegory. It's taking something that's something crude, perhaps something base, and sculpting it, through intention, into something, into a creation of some sort, and this is what's done throughout this entire film. The way it was directed, all the little plot devices, all the little, the way that things are presented to you, all the little throwaway lines, and all the things that are also repeated to you. This is, you're sort of, your mind is sort of being. There's almost an alchemical process going on within the mind there, where your mind is being guided through sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, a sort of a process of some kind,
Yeah. I think the main point of the film is really the very end. I was struggling the whole time to try to figure out, the hidden messages and what the real point was and what they're trying to get across and all that sort of stuff. And it's hard for me to tell, to be quite honest. Beyond the example of the very last scene, I can tell that there is the big reveal. And in a way, this is disappointing because I get kind of annoyed with the movie where it's all about, the trick ending, as it were, and it appears as though that's the case here. I'm not sure if that's it or not, but why don't we just get right to the ending, because there's a whole lot of meaning to what the ending is. So what is that?
Well, that's it. Yeah, the ending really does put the whole film into perspective, and I think if there was only one message, it would be revealed in this final scene at the end. Where it's finally revealed that the fifth horseman, so to speak, the person who has supplied these four magicians with information and resources and whatever it is they've needed to pull off this increasingly intense series of magic shows,
and leading their initiation process.
And that, of course, that being the initiation process, it turns out that this mysterious figure, the four magicians don't know who it is. They have no idea, and it turns out to be the actual detective, the FBI detective, who was chasing them and in pursuit of them the whole time. This kind of, as I said before, this kind of stressed out, confused cop who's constantly, sort of like he's always, 5 steps behind them, and he's always getting angry and upset that he can't catch them, and at the very end, it's revealed that actually, he was the one who's created this entire series of events. He was the alchemist, he was the adept, and he basically the last scene, shows them, jumping onto a carousel with this guy in New York. I think it's in Central Park, and
yes, it is.
Basically the screen just kind of goes. The screen sort of just flashes into, it sort of transitions into just a white light, and that sort of symbolizes the final initiation. If people, it's like the rituals that they do in Skull and Bones and Masonry and things like that, where you lie down in the coffin, and then you're reborn again, so you sort of pull that back into the light, and I thought that final scene there, where it's finally revealed, who this sort of grandmaster or fifth horseman rather, who he is, they sort of finally are accepted into this so-called secret society called the Eye. And as that happens, the screen sort of just flashes into white, sort of symbolizing the final process of the initiation. The light. They're now awake. They're no longer blind. They can now see. They've got access to all the inside information, all the knowledge.
Well, all of them were given a tarot card by the FBI man, who's Mark Ruffalo, his character, to start this process. And I guess if you were to apply one to Mark Ruffalo himself, it would be the Fool. And, they say of the Fool, the wise man often walks the path of the Fool, I think is how it goes. Yeah. So the Fool is the 0 card, the first major arcana card of the tarot deck. Lots of symbolism going on there, but basically the whole time this FBI guy was playing the fool throughout the whole movie. He's a fool. He knows nothing. He's an idiot. He's never going to catch him. Well, that's right. That's where one should be looking. Perhaps you should be looking where you least expect.
Exactly, because there's a double meaning to the fool card. It's it's like a coin. It has 2 opposite sides. The fool card is not simply to symbolize the aspects of foolishness and ignorance. No. It's also to symbolize the sort of I don't know, what do you want to call it? The enlightened individual.
And the enlightened individual has the ability to fool other people to his own ends.
Yeah, the enlightened individual, the most the most unsuspecting or the most unlikely of characters. The person who he looks like a fool because he sees through so many things. He sees through the deception, and he's not attached to it. He's gone beyond it. He's
detached from the material world. Too.
Exactly. Yeah. He's detached from the material world. So that's I think it was it was very clever that they very intentional at least, that they chose to sort of portray him as the fool, and the terror, because as you say, double meanings. On an exoteric level, he's just a fool. He's just foolish. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's an idiot. He's an ignorance. He's blind. But of course, if you go into the esoteric, interpretations of what the fool is, the other side of the coin, it's quite the opposite, in fact.
Yeah, I think the stepping onto the carousel has quite a bit of meaning too. I mean, first of all, they're the four horsemen, and they get on a carousel that's loaded with horses, right? So they get on a wheel of horses, and they mount the horses, and they begin to spin. Of course, the spinning circle references the zodiac and all sorts of cycles and cyclical nature of things. So there's that going on. And then so there's a whole bunch of like little things like this that pop out to me for sure.
Yeah. There's. I mean, the film was full of lots of interesting little nuggets, lots of interesting little things, that make you think, what does that mean? What are they referencing there? And there's a few sort of weird moments in the film that they sort of cut back to a previous scene, and you think, okay, well, are they cutting back to show us like a different angle of something, like a different camera angle, so we can sort of, figure out what the mystery is or how this particular stunt was pulled off or whatever it is. But it's kind of weird. It doesn't really sort of enlighten you as to what's really going on. They just kind of do it. It's almost like as a form of deception,
Yeah, confuses you more.
Just confuses you more, to make you think, oh, right, okay, so we've been given, now it's being explained how this particular trick was done, but actually they don't really explain it. They just sort of cut back to a previous scene. And so I think, again, it's just to throw you off, and there's so many little things like this going on throughout the film,
And through the initiation process here, when they finally are initiated, I would say the four horsemen finally bring about the apocalypse, because that's one of the occult meanings of apocalypse, is the death of the self.
And the unveiling as well,
Yeah, so the death and rebirth ritual is brought about. So the end of the world comes, but the end of the world is also a new beginning. So again, that is symbolized in the carousel cycle idea. So this is a cyclical process. They have reached the end, but it's only just the beginning. Like, so there's that going on.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of looked at that as being, if you trace. I'm pretty sure the etymology of the word apocalypse back. I'm pretty sure it's Latin, and it comes. I think its original meaning was merely the unveiling or the uncovering. I could be wrong on that one, but it was something along those lines. I'm pretty sure. I think that the original true meaning of the word apocalypse was not just death and destruction in the end. It was more about the unveiling, the revelation of a method, or the revelation of something,
Yeah, the revelation of a greater truth that brings about a whole new life for you.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
there's definitely that going on. And back to Morgan Freeman, it's funny when Mark Ruffalo, the fool, is finally revealed as the wise man, he pulls a fast one on Morgan Freeman, and Morgan Freeman is actually revealed to be the fool that he was the whole time. So the guy who we thought was Mr. Smarty Pants is actually a fool of his own undoing.
His own ego.
Ego, yes.
He's a victim of his own ego,
Yes.
It's like I was saying before, throughout the film, it's kind of suggested and presented to the audience in such a way that it comes across like he really does know what's going on. He seems to, be a step ahead of the FBI and the media and all the rest of it. And he's sort of always saying, oh, you guys don't know what you're doing here. And, these guys are way ahead of you. And he's sort of always very sort of cocky and confident and very, very cocky about the whole thing. And he always has this sort of, this kind of arrogant smile on his face. And right at the end, it turns out that he had been played the whole time himself. So he symbolized the sort of exoteric fool, the one whose ego got the better of him, and who was basically done over. And I think, from memory, he ends up in jail. So
yeah. So, and there's a reason. I mean, the moral to the story is that the reason that he falls is because of his ego. So he brings about his own demise. And there's a lot of the whole ego as the destroyer message going on throughout the film. Again, just the message of the more you think you know, the less you understand. So you have to let go of trying to prove how great you are. And that's what a lot of people do when people who present themselves as the truth teller, I have the truth, you must listen to me. What they actually are the greatest examples of inflated ego you're ever going to find. And that's not where you're going to find the truth ever. So if we're talking about real positive message in a film, that's probably the best one, because that's absolutely true.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely very, very true. And I mean, you could apply that to so many different things. I mean, especially a person's journey into this whole alternative media truth movement thing. I mean, you could apply that concept, to that journey, and what people refer to as the waking up process.
Yeah, because you got to be careful not to worship the truth tellers themselves, who are revealing all the secrets, because they could be like this Morgan Freeman character.
Exactly. Yeah, they could be basically charlatans who are being misled and being played themselves, which I think is definitely the case for certain people.
Sure. Yeah.
That's definitely a major theme of the film. I mean, however, on the other hand, you've also got the fact that some of these horsemen, at least one of them anyway, there's one of them who I've forgotten the guy's name, but he's definitely the most sort of cocky and arrogant of them all, and he stays that way throughout the film. So
is it Woody Harrelson? Is that who you're talking about?
No, not Woody Harrelson. He's younger than him.
Oh yeah, the young guy from the Facebook movie, right?
Maybe. I can't remember the guy's name. He's kind of got sort of.
He's Jesse Eisenberg. Jesse Eisenberg, I think, is the actor.
He's not the youngest one. Not the sort of. The one who ends up getting to a fight with a detective.
He's the one who's the girl was his ex-assistant.
Yeah,
right?
that one. Yeah. The one who had this the girl used to be a secretary or whatever. Him. He's very, very cocky throughout the entire film and is absolutely filled with ego. And it's strange because, as you say, this whole idea of ego being one's downfall is definitely presented throughout the film, for those who can see it. But at the same time,
he ends up being initiated. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's a very, very egotistical person. He's constantly throwing out these witticisms and these one-liners and constantly, fooling people and making fun of them the whole time throughout the film. And he doesn't really progress on in terms of his kind of humility or anything like that. He stays arrogant, but yet he's still initiated.
That's a great point. I think the film isn't really very good in a lot of senses, and this is certainly one of them. Yeah, because they're presenting this great idea, like ego is a downfall, but then we also see an example of this huge inflated ego, like, oh, he made it into the eye because he's a good magician. It's like, well, what's that? That's very annoying.
It's kind of a conflicting message, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. Yes, so definitely a flawed film. I don't think it's the best film. We're in similar waters with the last one that we did with Assault on Wall Street, and that isn't the best film ever, but it's got some interesting ideas in it.
Very much so, yeah. And again, I think a lot of these ideas, they tie directly in with so many things that are going on in current events in the real world. I mean, again, Assault on Wall Street was all about taking it to the banks. It was all about bringing about justice and, tearing down these leviathans of power. These corrupt, evil bankers. And there was a similar kind of theme in this film. Again, as I said earlier on, all the magic tricks they're doing, and all these big stunts and shows that they're putting on. They all revolve around money. They all revolve around taking money from someone who's rich and and giving it to the poor. And one of the best examples of this is basically they have a character, the Michael Caine character, who is presented as basically being their financier.
That's right. Yeah.
He gets involved with them, and he, it's sort of. I mean, I don't think it's just suggested at any point that he was the fifth horseman or anything like that. He's just sort of a really rich, powerful guy. But he was, he was into insurance and everything. But they do a show, and then they reference the fact that
he's their benefactor.
Yeah, he's the benefactor.
They point to him. Yeah.
They point to him as the benefactor, yeah, basically. But then they screw him over as well by basically doing a show where there's a whole bunch of people. I think it's in New Orleans. They do a show in New Orleans, and it's all these people. They basically get this guy up on stage and say, "Hey, look, everyone, this is the guy that screwed you on your insurance after the hurricane back in 2005." The reason you didn't get your insurance payouts and the reason you're all broke now is because of this guy, And then they pull off the trick where they somehow transfer, all of his wealth. They basically spread it amongst the audience. They do this sort of trick where somehow there's money transferred over, through the banking systems. From his huge, $140 something million account, and then they give everyone in the audience, an equal portion of that money, because they see that it's sort of about bringing about justice, that he screwed them on their insurance, he didn't pay out when he should have, and now they're basically sort of tipping the scales against. So you have the same idea of that came up in a previous film again, and so I don't think that was. That was obviously intentional. The fact that they kept on choosing to focus all these magic tricks around the theme of money and the theme of taking from the rich and giving to the poor, and sort of balancing the scale, so to speak.
And it's playing to the hopes of the masses, as was Sold on Wall Street, the hopes that there's somebody out there who can bring about justice and somehow balance the scales of money, money specifically here, because people get financially ruined, and it's not fair what they're taking advantage of, and is there no justice in the world? So it's playing to that, and it's kind of giving people the hope, like, well, yes, there is such a thing as justice. And also beyond that, it's the concept that through the secret societies that this is being done, like the bringers of justice.
Secret societies are good, I mean, it's that whole kind of Disney interpretation of what Masonry and secret societies are, like these kind of these silent secret protectors of justice, and this is brought out in this film as like National Treasure, and there's a few other ones out there as well, and it's kind of this this very, very exoteric, misguided interpretation of what these secret societies do and what they represent. Especially the Bavarian Illuminati and the predecessors to that particular society, and all the ones that have come since. Again, presenting the whole idea that these are some kind of magnanimous, almost god type figures who sort of sort of sit behind the scenes and make sure that justice is done in the world. Whenever things are getting out of control, or whenever evil tyrants rise up or evil systems rise up and suppress the people. We've got these heroes and the secret societies who are adept in the arts of sleight of hand and of magic and of deception, and they're going to basically bring about justice for us. So it's kind of lionizing the concept of secret societies and all of that. In the same way as again I said, if you watch the first 5 or 10 minutes of National Treasure, the film with Nicolas Cage, basically there's like this, a 5-minute monologue on how great secret societies are and how great the Illuminati are and how they're sort of always this kind of this benevolent guiding force behind the course of human history, and that idea is definitely seems to be advanced in this film.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then I guess I'll jump to the very end here, because this is where I think where they make kind of the biggest point of all is they go back to Paris, where the Interpol woman lives. She lives in Paris. And Mark Ruffalo, the fool, the initiator, the Grand Master that he is, goes back to see her again because, they had a relationship through the whole movie. And they're kind of, they're trying to finalize that whole relationship in the movie here. So they're talking, and they're on a bridge that's over the river. I think it's the River Seine, and it's actually, it's right by Notre Dame Cathedral is where they are. But anyway, so they're on this bridge where people, they'll put a lock on the bridge and then they'll throw the key in the water. So they're talking, and how's it end? I have the line here. I think it ends with Mark Ruffalo saying, "What do you see? 1, 2." So he asks her, "What do you see?" And then he counts down 1, 2, and he's throwing the key in the water. So the key, what you do in the very last thing that you see in the movie, the key is floating down through the water. It rests on the bottom. It's in the river. And then there's that question of, what do you see? And I think that it's Ruffalo saying that as you're watching the key go down there. So you're getting this inner monologue of him. It's become your inner monologue. So you're wondering, okay, what do you see? And then he's counting down 1, 2, and then counting up rather 1, 2, and then where he would say 3, the credits pop up. And this is a device that I've seen used in other things where it kind of leads your thought to like, okay, I'm supposed to be looking for something. I'm supposed to be looking for something. This is it. This is it. Was it? And then boom, what pops up is well, no, it's not over. Actually, it would exoterically appear to be over, but the truth is revealed in that it presents you with the people who made the movie. So, boom, here are the names of the people who brought you this. And in those names, there's the real purpose. They are the real Mark Ruffalos of the real world, I think.
Yeah. Of course, and as you say, when the credits pop up, boom, directed by a guy called Joachim Boas.
Well, actually, screenplay by him. Yeah, screenplay by him. Mm-hmm.
I think the script, was it not the screenplay and the director?
I think the director was somebody else, but it pops up his name like right away as you see Joachim Boas, or Boas Joachim, whatever his name is. The director is Louis Lettier. I think that's it. Appears to be a French name, so Paris would make sense.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, no, you're right. It is.
But right away you see Joachim Boas, and that popped up to me obviously because I understood the movie as a Masonic allegory, and certainly this is a Masonic pseudonym for the screenwriter.
Yeah. I mean, whether that's his real name. I mean, he is an Israeli guy, and of course, there's a long history of connections between Judaism and Masonry. But it's whether Boaz Joachim, as in Joachim and Boaz, the twin pillars of Freemasonry, the masculine, the feminine, the black, the white, the the two polarizing. The yin, the yang, whatever you want to call it, whether that's his real name or not, I'm not sure.
I highly doubt it.
Yeah, so do I. But beyond being able to prove that that's not his actual name, it does beg the question, who is this guy? And I think what they're really saying there is as you said before, he was a magician, really. Mm-hmm. I mean,
and it's a Masonic thing. It's clear you're seeing the two
very clearly,
the two temple or the two pillars at the gate of the temple. So you're being led into the temple yourself.
Yeah.
In darkness, I would add too, because the credits are a black screen, and the only light are the white text that pop up. So that's kind of symbolic too.
Yeah, that's right. It's something like that flash of light that I was talking about at the end, where they sort of supposedly ascend into enlightenment. It's the same kind of theme there again. Where it's 1, 2, and then boom, credits pop up, and you've got Joachim Boas there. So you're sort of being told,
the symbol of the key too. You're being given the key. You know what I mean? So you've been watching the key. Here's the key. Are you going to use it? And also, it being in water is significant too.
Yeah. What do you have to say about that?
Well, water is related to magic itself pretty closely, and of course, you've got one of the pillars, Boaz is the water pillar, and the other one, Yakin, is the fire. So it's the two sort of opposite creative forces. You get the creation myth of the male and the female, and the water's typically the female. So it's the vessel with which all life actually, and all motion, all life emanates from out of the womb that is water.
Yeah, and of course in a scientific sense as well, water is carbon and water, the two sort of building blocks of pretty much all life as we know it anyway on this planet. So
and
there's that level too.
Life is generated from water in all sorts of ways. I mean, we're within the womb. We're floating in water there. We're kind of generated from out of the midst of the water there. There's also the evolutionary way you could look at this, where life first came out of the ocean and then crawled up onto land
crawled
later.
Up on the land,
that sort of deal. That's all that stuff which people would want to tend to like completely divorce from any sorts of occult or magical ideas are actually directly tied to it. Directly, people don't understand that.
Yeah. There's so many little examples of that, which I think the average audience is going to miss, completely. Again, it just ties right back into the whole theme of getting you to concentrate and try and figure things out in a logical way, and try and look for look for the hidden meanings and the hidden clues, and look for the sleight of hand when really the answer is right in front of you. You've been looking at it the whole time.
While you've been in the midst of the waters, which is the material world. So you've been blinded by the material, but within it, you have the key if you can find it. The key is there for you to get.
It's like it's like one of those mind game pictures where they show you a huge collage of images, but the key would be some small little tiny thing that was sort of hidden amongst all the drama and all the color and all the intensity of the image. You'd have something very simple, very sort of subtle, embedded within it all, and that I think is what they've done in this film, especially with the whole concept of trying to draw you in to make you analyze and make you look for the sleight of hand, make you look for the mechanisms and the mechanics and the processes as to how they've done this, whole series of magic tricks, when really they, as we have shown at the end of the film, the answer was right in front of you the whole time. It was it was the last person or the last thing that you would ever expect it to be, but you were presented with it the whole time. It was right in front of you.
Just got to open your eyes. That sort of idea. I know. I guess back to Boaz Yakin, I actually reviewed another one of his films that he did the screenplay for with Prince of Persia, and that was clearly a Masonic allegory too. So there's definitely that going on for sure. And on a personal level, a couple of the locations at the end of the film were familiar to me. The carousel they get on in Central Park, that was I remember being right by that carousel in 2009 when I was actually covering the Singularity Summit. And I happened to be in Central Park at one point, and that brought back that memory for me. And then the scene in Paris on that bridge with all the locks. I've been there fairly recently too, because I've actually been to Paris, France, in the not too distant past, and that place popped out to me when we walked by. And I'm like, what the heck are all those locks doing there? It's a very interesting spot. So I don't know. If the film did something right personally, that was it, because it was just little personal memories popped up for me.
There's so many things that we could talk about in this film. Lots of little nuggets. And again, we always say this in our reviews that there's all these tiny little things that we could take off in so many different directions. But I guess sort of coming towards the end of the review here. How would you sort of describe or sum up this film? I mean, what would be the best way for you to describe to maybe someone who hasn't seen the film, or perhaps someone who has, what this film is really about? What was the main message, in your own words?
I guess the main message is the one of initiation. You know, you're seeing the initiation process. The main message being, you know, don't let your ego get the best of you. But again, if we're talking about a review of the film, it's not really the best film because, again, they're giving you the contradicting messages where Heisenberg or whatever his name was he was ego inflated the whole time. He ends up being initiated anyway. So it's really not the best film, but certainly lots of Masonic themes going on here. That'd be the thing to look for mainly.
Yeah, I think so. I'd agree with that, and I think you know, I would say to people who perhaps haven't seen it or who perhaps want to see it again that as we've discussed throughout this review, you know, the whole theme of this film is about getting you to look, to analyze, and to think that you figured it out. You know.
Yes.
And when really the answers can't be found through that kind of thought process or that kind of approach, and they're much more subtle and nuanced, but at the same time much more obvious than you might think. And I think this really is as an allegory for so many things, and especially as I said before, in terms of the whole truth movement, the alternative media, and the whole concept of people coming into knowledge that they hadn't previously come into before, and thinking that they know it all, you know, and thinking that they understand it all and they can figure it out and they can predict everything, and you know, I think it's really in many ways an allegory for that, you know, people trying to decode and investigate and pin things down when really what's going on here in terms of the you know, the New World Order, the agenda, the course of events that has been unfolding and is unfolding, and where that's all going, you know, in terms of trying to decode and understand that, you know, I think there's a lot of very interesting messages being given in this film about that process as well. You know,
don't hold on too tightly to what you believe is the truth.
Exactly. Because, you know, as many facts as you can dig up and as many conclusions as you think you can come to, you know, there's always going to be something you're not seeing. You know, there's always going to be, you know, what you think might be something that's really important, you know, could well be just stage drama and theatrics that distract you from something else, which is actually far more important, you know, and far more profound, you know.
And also your ego can deceive you. You can deceive yourself. So there's a lot of deceivers out there that you have to be wary of constantly.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, there's a lot of people who play to your ego and will make you think that, you know, you have figured it all out. And that you have all the answers and that you know exactly what's going on, and that there is no mystery to any of this, and that you can actually predict things. And you know, I think the film makes some statements about, you know, the flaws, shall we say, and that viewpoint or that state of mind, you know, and how. You know, how so many people are led, you know, down that path, you know, down the path of the exoteric fool, so to speak, you know.
Don't become the fool, but however, use the fool archetype in its positive sense, I suppose.
yeah, exactly. I mean,
understand it.
Yeah, if you know, and I think for the average person's just going to watch this film and say, "What the hell?" You know, like, what the hell was that about? You know, but you know, someone who is able to look at the film in the ways that we've been suggesting in this particular interview will see, you know, much more depth in it.
So that ought to wrap it up right there for this episode of Themes and Memes. If you want to subscribe to this podcast, please do so. My website is ageoftransitions.com. Adam, tell them about your side.
Yeah, my site is still under construction, unfortunately, but don't worry, it will be up and running shortly. It's cerebralrevolt.com. And as I said, basically just a holding page at the moment. I've been so busy over the last couple of months that I really just haven't had the time or energy to do anything in regards to the website. But it's definitely on the way. So if people want to bookmark that and check it out. A bit later on, there'll be some content being uploaded to it, you know, in the coming weeks and months.
Yes. So, this is the Themes and Memes podcast. Subscribe at ageoftransitions.com at the RSS feed. Check out cerebralrevolt.com. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.